Hello and welcome to Communication Connection. I'm Terry Likes. Thank you so much for joining us. In the Department of Communication, we teach a variety of forms of storytelling. It's at the heart of communication and what we do in our everyday lives. And joining us, our guest is Khristie Edmonds. Khristie's a 1996 graduate of the communication program. Her life has been an interesting story, to say the least. Khristie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
1996 graduate, so you've been out in the field for many years, and you have a brand new role. You've been teaching for several at East Mississippi Community College, and now you have a new leadership role. Tell us about that.
I do. I'm a division chair for the Fine Arts and Humanities at East Mississippi, and basically it's kind of like a combination of a department head and a little bit about, I don't know, there's a lot to it. You help with scheduling, and you actually evaluate teaching and also overall evaluations for my faculty, and I'm over art, music, English, and speech and theater. So there's even more to it than I actually realized. So it's been fun to adjust and to get my reins with it.
Well, very interesting. Let's take it back toward the beginning of your career then,
okay.
And we'll circle back to this. Your undergraduate days, you were interested in broadcasting. What took you in that direction?
I actually began as a journalism major. Coming in high school, I wrote an article for a local paper in Jackson called the Northside Sun, and so I just said, well, I'll do that, you know. And when I got here, I was blessed enough to be able to compete in the Miss Mississippi pageant. And really did it for scholarship purposes. I wasn't really a person that liked to be up in the center of attention at the time, but through that experience, I got to do several television interviews and just kind of saw the production and fell in love. And so I came back and changed my major immediately to broadcasting, and you know, the rest is history. I never changed again, completed it all through.
Well, you've always had a proud legacy here with the university and family involved, and you were something that not many people can claim, an inaugural member of the Shackhouls Honors College.
I was actually on the faculty side of that, and the very first group that got, you know, we got our big medallions that we could wear at graduation, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed teaching honors students. They challenged me probably more than I challenged them sometimes, it felt like, and so it was a real honor to be a member of that first class of faculty.
Well, it's different when you're teaching, let's say, a freshman class in Intro to Communication or Public Speaking and dealing with honors students. So it's challenging from a faculty role as well, isn't it?
It is, and I was a part of learning communities from the beginning here at MSU too, and so that class happened to be paired with Tom Carskadden's psychology class. So all of our students had both him and me for the semester, and we did journals, and so it was it took a lot more, but I learned a ton about my students, and we developed bonds that I still have with some of them today. So it was a different perspective and a different way of teaching, but it was still it was really a lot of fun. And
it exposes you to a different side of the university as well.
It does. You make other connections across the university, because even though we say we're the People's University, we're big. Yes. We're very big, and so it did allow me to make some connections across through the Honors College and even other departments.
So communication, networking, storytelling, it's all part of one's life, and in your case, you went on and studied broadcast meteorology.
I did, and surprisingly, I was introduced to that through working here at the TV Center when I was an undergrad. I actually was the student producer for the weather crew. Used to come over here and do their practices and practice doing forecasts every week, and so I set it all up and recorded it for them and everything. And Dr. Mike Brown, who is now back in geosciences, he was a grad student at that time, kind of introduced me, and we talked, and I was like, I never thought about it. The weather fascinates me. Maybe I should do this. And it just kind of worked out. I got a grad assistantship that paid for all of my schooling in the College of Arts and Sciences Dean's Office, which led me into advising and kind of helped me out later on. I had no idea. I thought I was going to school to be a meteorologist, and ends up that's not exactly where I ended up, but it was just part of the path.
But you took that path and were able to then enter the field of broadcast meteorology in Jackson Television.
I did, at a place called National Weather Networks, and what we did was weather forecasts for smaller stations across the nation, and even a couple in Canada, that needed weather forecasts, and at the time they didn't have their own weather department. They couldn't afford to have their own one. So what we did is we had 3 television feeds via satellite per day. We did their forecast, anywhere from a 15-second today, tonight, tomorrow kind of thing, all the way down to a 2.5-minute toss back to you, Jim, and recipe of the day. And we had about 70 television affiliates and about 30 to 50 radio affiliates. And so they would watch it, take theirs down, and play it back during their newscast. So it was an interesting way. Got lots of practice.
Well, I'm sure you did, and it's great in ad-libbing skills and communication, and you can walk outside and notice things about the atmosphere and what the weather is going to do that the average person wouldn't. So
my department definitely, when the sirens go off, they're like, "Where is it?" And so I can actually look and find it and tell them we're okay. It's going to miss us if it's a tornado. So,
well, life does have a way of having many twists and turns, and from there you took a role in ministry, is that correct?
I did. Honestly, I got a little burnt out on weather. I'll tell you, I would go in around 4 in the morning, get off around 7 at night, and where I worked, we only had 2 of us. We really needed 4. And so some weekends, after 2 years of that, I was a little burnt out. And married, my husband wasn't ready to just jump up and move, which you have to do in the broadcasting world if you want a different job. And there's not any openings where you are, and there are only 3 stations there. Talked to all of them, no openings. So I did take a student ministry assistant position, and honestly, that helped teach me a lot more of the administrative kind of role, keeping up in details and with money, and all the different kinds of administrative things that you need to do, which comes into play now. I use those skills even now.
And so that brought you back into campus life.
Yes, and it was fun, right? Because I still got to work with students, and so it kind of introduced me to that, and then brought me back here. My husband got a job in Columbus, and so I was like, what am I going to do? There's only 1 station, and they have a full weather department, so what am I going to do? And I talked to Mark Binkley, who was over the meteorology department at that time, and he didn't have anything. He said, but I think communication does. And so I came over and talked to Dr. Marion Huttenstein. She was the department head at that time. And I thought it was a job interview, and within 10 minutes, she's like, if you got the job, just how many do you want to teach? I'm like, oh my goodness. And that started it. And so for 16 years, I taught full-time here. And my 2 favorite classes were public speaking, and I started teaching interviewing right before I made the transition to East, and absolutely love that too.
So teaching here and the transition in, I believe, 2018 at East Mississippi, correct?
Correct.
And what took you over there?
Money.
Okay.
You hear, that the way you get your bigger raises is you move. And unfortunately, I wasn't even looking for it. It just kind of fell into it. A friend of mine worked out there, was looking for an adjunct to possibly turn into a full-time, and we just started a conversation, and eventually I was like, okay. And they paid me for my 16 years of experience, so it ended up being like a 40% raise for me. And even though I love Mississippi State and was not looking to move at all, loved our department, everything, I couldn't pass it up. So.
Well, you're still close by, and you still teach in the evenings, afternoons and evenings within the unit, so we are certainly glad to have you. Yes.
I'm glad to be back in that respect.
Well, you mentioned earlier the Miss Mississippi pageant, and so to bring that full circle, you've had a passion in working with that organization for many years, and I'm sure for you it's a way of giving back as well.
It is, and as I said, my favorite 2 classes are interviewing and public speaking, and I put that into practice. I actually help young ladies develop their skills both in interview and in public speaking, and I think that's why I love it so much. Plus, I got my start kind of there, and it kind of directed me, and so I love seeing the young girls get hone those skills, and then when they go to have a job interview, like for me, between that and our interviewing course in the department, there was no job interview that I was ever very nervous about because I felt confident in my interviewing skills. And so I love to pass that on to our young ladies. And we even had a Miss Mississippi a couple years ago and got to go to the 100th Miss America competition. And so that was really neat. So there's a lot of different things that have come through just being able to do that. But the main thing is I just love helping young ladies, win or lose, just get better with those skills.
For the general public over the years with an organization like that, there may be some stereotypes of a beauty pageant, for example, and you know that's a lot more than that, and scholarships and teaching life skills, and there's so much more that I'm sure you can tell us about.
It is. And honestly, Miss America's even trying to get away from the whole pageant stereotype. So they call it a competition now instead of a pageant. And it is, there's so much more to it. And you know, there is the beauty aspect, but it's more of a confidence aspect rather than who's most beautiful. And it's that you're healthy, you take care of yourself, and then of course being able to speak and be very well spoken, answer questions, even, you know, to the point where somebody may not agree with your answer, but you're able to share that answer and not offend someone, and them just to understand your side. And then of course we have different scholarships all over the place. Mississippi is one of the biggest scholarship providers for women in the Miss America system. I think we're like third, something like that. And so we do give a lot of scholarships, and not just to winners. So there's a lot of different things they gain from that, and it is not a beauty pageant.
And I'm sure you enjoy watching these young people over time grow into a variety of roles, including work life and personal life, and much beyond when they were, for example, 20 years old.
Definitely. And our Miss Mississippi, Holly Brand is her name. She's from Meridian. And she, honestly, last spring, not this past one, but the one before, competed on The Voice and made top 8. And so that was so exciting to be able to cheer her on. I'm like, I know her. You know? And now she's in Nashville, and she hasn't said yet, but I think she's producing an album right now, so we're excited to see what comes from that for her. But all of our girls do different things. We have one in the hotel business, and just all different kinds of things, and it's really fun to see where they end up and what they get to do. In our final moments here, what type of advice do you like to pass along to students that you're working with? Well, and you've probably heard this quote before, but you know, whatever you pick, there's not a right or a wrong choice necessarily. It's just, do you go in and go, I can't believe people are paying me to do this? If you can get that, then you know, you're not working most of the time. You're enjoying life. And yes, every job has those days, so it's not going to be like that all the time. But if you can find something like that, and I remember thinking that the first few days I started in the weather business, I was like, oh, I can't believe I used to do this for free at state, and now I'm getting paid to do this. This is wonderful. And that carries all the way through. And then the other thing is just to realize that just because you think you're going to go into one thing, you may be being prepared to do something else, and just kind of take it as it goes and let life kind of guide you where you want to be, which is what I've done, and I feel like it's worked out pretty well. I think so. Khristie, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. And thank you for watching us here on Communication Connection. We'll see you next time.